What's up? Welcome in. Hoge Jahns back with you as we head into Labor Day weekend with a fun little episode for you. College football is back. High school football is back tonight. Starting
baby.
Football season. And when we're back next week, it will officially be week 1 in the NFL. Johnsy, you feeling it?
Yes. This is when it gets real. Training camp is officially over. It ended Thursday. It was fun to watch most of the full practice before I had to go inside and work a little bit, but it's over. The real football is coming soon. College obviously has started.
Yeah, I was going to say, I had to rep my Badgers today. They play Western Michigan tonight, start of a season. And, this is kind of flown under the radar, but one of the biggest wrongs in the world was corrected. Because for the first time ever, I don't know about ever, but first time in a really long time, if not ever, I think it might be ever, they are selling alcohol inside Camp Randall Stadium, which, if you think about that, it is the state of Wisconsin, is the state school of Wisconsin. It is pretty much all anyone does around those football games. And so the fact that they've never had booze inside the stadium is a travesty, but it has been corrected. And starting tonight,
jump around will turn into puke around.
Jump and fall over around,
yes.
Which sometimes would happen anyway.
Yeah, right. Jump and slip and look out.
Yeah, if they thought the press box was shaking before, just wait till tonight. And also the high school football season starting tonight as well.
Good luck to you.
Carmel heading out to Grays Lake Central tonight. Should be a lot of fun. Good luck to all
Notre Dame St. Pat's tonight.
Woo! To start the season.
Right off the bat.
Mount Carmel lost last night
to the Huns of Princeton, New Jersey.
Yeah, it was a good team. I actually watched most of the fourth quarter. Once I realized it was close, I was like, oh, gotta jump on, watch that game. A lot of football on last night. Colorado, Minnesota lost on a last-second field goal. Man, you just hate to see that. Thoughts and prayers to the Gophers. All right. We have a fun interview coming your way. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Johns, and our show account at Hoge Jahns. Get all your merch for the season at HoganJahns.com. But every once in a while, we get the chance to talk to the great Mark Potash, who's been covering this team essentially as long as anybody. The stories are great. His Twitter shtick is great. And I couldn't think of a better guest to have on the show right before Labor Day weekend. So let's jump right in. Here he is, the man we call Potsy. All right, time now to bring in our good friend, Mark Potash. You know him as Potsy, the king of Bears Twitter, which Greg Braggs will take offense to. I'm sure you guys can hash that out later today on CHGO. Potsy, my first question to you is, how old is that TV behind you?
Wow. I wish I knew. Probably 30 years old. Used to break down Wani film on that thing. Maybe.
It's got the VHS.
Yeah.
insert.
Yeah. Used to tape all the games and replay them on that thing. It's actually pretty convenient. I still use it. It's very functional.
So I watch games?
What's that?
You watch your games there still?
No, I don't watch them on that anymore. I have a flat screen deal, modern thing. But when I go over old videotapes, it's kind of fun to watch those when you're, especially old games, old Bears games from the 90s and stuff, and just pop it in there and just watch the game. So it's kind of fun.
Mark, you've covered this team we'll do it this way, from Platteville to Bourbonnais to Hallis Hall. I'm curious. We've talked about this at length multiple times while being out as friends at dinner or whatnot. What do you make of what training camps become for the Bears, or maybe in the NFL in general?
Well, I like it and I don't. For me, I don't like it. I prefer camp when it's really camp, which Platteville was. Bourbonnais was not, because when we were in Platteville, you could literally be there for 3 weeks straight. I mean, some guys went home, you're 200 miles from home. So some guys went home on the weekends. I did not. The 3 years I covered the Bears training camps there. And it was really camp, and it was just a really good work situation. You were just totally immersed in your work, and you could get into it. And it was just for me, it was just better. Bourbonnais was not the same because there were too many breakups. I think it was after Corey Stringer died. they mandated days off, and then for good reason. But then they had extra days off, and so it turned out, I think at the end we were there for no more than 2 days or 2 or 3 days in a row, and it was just too herky jerky as far as covering it, and I think even for the players, and so so the option is, if I would rather have Platteville than anything else, but I would rather have the way they set it up now. I'd rather have Hallis Hall than Bourbonnais. I just think that's a better setup, and I think the Bears like it. Boy, they can't. They seem to. I mean, I know it's great to have fans there and stuff like that, but they just seem to operate better, I think, in this kind of environment. So that's my take on it. I like Platteville. Bourbonnais was a bad in between, and I think this is functional for everybody, the way they do it now, and it's the way of the NFL. It's not going to change.
I do kind of laugh though, Posse, because like you have players, some of them, especially rookies, and guys that don't know if they're going to make the team, spend 6 weeks in a hotel, during this time period. And I get it. No one wants to be in a hotel that long, but compared to the old dorms of probably Platteville and Bourbonnais, it's a lot better. And I don't know, does it catch your ear at all in any way when you hear players, like a lot of players are talking about how long camp was this year, and it was a long camp, but like, how does it compare to like back in the Platteville days when there were still 2 a days and pretty much every practice was in pads going hard?
Well, it was different, but not really, because players back then were conditioned that that's the way it was. I mean, I think I remember once I counted like 44 practices that fans could attend, including 2 a days, and now it's like 9. So they're just many. They're just used to it, and I think you would hear complaints about it, but not that many. And I'll be honest, even the complaints people have mentioned it this year about how long camp is, I don't get that they're like really annoyed by it. That was my impression. I didn't feel like they were really annoyed by the length of camp. It was only 1 week, and I didn't think it was that bad, but certainly not the issue that it was for players, like you say, who were in dorms and stuff like that back in the old days of camp. But again, it's all what you're conditioned to do, and players now, if you ask them to do what the Bears did in Platteville, would recoil. I mean, they would shudder, because it's so different. But it's all what you're conditioned to do. So I think everybody's in general good with it. And I did not hear a lot of complaints, or the complaints I did hear about how long was just to me not like I said, not a real annoyance. I didn't get that impression anyway.
I consider myself, Hoge too. We're proud veterans of the Bourbonnais era of Bears training camp, but Platteville, I don't know, maybe it just feels special because there's a few media members still operating in Chicago who covered the Bears then, right? Like who's left? Like Mulligan's one?
Yeah. Oh, from the Platteville days?
Yes.
Yeah.
Arkish?
Yeah. Jeff Joniak, he was in the dorm. I'm trying to think if there's not too many. Hub. Yeah. Yeah, not a whole lot, but that was a totally different thing. And then the dorm was, I think, a big part of it for me. I liked being that's when we stayed in the dorms, and I thought that was, again, part of the camp experience. It just made it good for me. And then we were there. We were in dorms. I don't know if people care about this kind of inside training camp talk, but we were in dorms in Bourbonnais as well, and then Pace took us out. You remember
John
that?
Fox. I would say John Fox kicked us out.
Well, Pace and Fox, whatever. It did, who I don't know whose call it was, but anyway, yeah, that we never got that back. So that was always a negative. But yeah, no, those were different times, and it seemed like you got more one-on-ones, or the access was better. I know people don't like to hear us complain about access, but access was much better. You used to be able to get assistant coaches going to lunch, coming out of lunch, talk to players going to lunch. It was, in my opinion, now this is an old man yelling at cloud thing, but to me, it was covering training camp was so much better in those days because it was so much more open. But I'm just glad we're at the regular season finally.
Yeah, to that point, Potsy, just real quick, and we can move on to something else. Like, I'll give you one example. Kyle Long once dinged up his ankle in a practice in Bourbonnais, and 20 minutes later was at the same food line as me in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
And he's walking around, so I could tell it wasn't serious. And then I was just like, how's the ankle? He's like, I'll be fine. Might miss a couple days, but it's fine. And to be able to just be like, hey, Kyle Long banged up his ankle, he'll be back in a few days, just avoids a few days of speculation when the coaches don't like to give a whole lot of injury information. You know what I mean? So like that's an example to me that like that type of access was a good thing, because it just wasn't a big deal. You just clear up what the story was and you move on. It wasn't a big deal.
I agree. I miss, being able to stop John Hoke as he rides his bike to the lunchroom and say, hey, you got a minute, and talk to him about the Tyreek Stevenson of whatever, 2012 or whatever. And instead of having to wait 2 weeks later when Tyreek Stevenson's situation is totally different, and anything that Hoke might say now might be, obsolete or whatever, right? But again, I know people don't want to hear us complain about access, but it is different. I think the coverage of training camp is different because of it. And the only thing I'll say, I can go on for an hour about this, but I'll keep it short. I'll keep it at this: is all I'll say is that the contraction of access throughout the NFL has made no difference to whether teams win or lose. And to me, that's the only point I can make. It is the Bears have been the same dysfunctional program organization since we couldn't talk to Tim Brame and the trainer, and couldn't get the coordinators after games, which we used to be able to do. Talk to people coming in and out of lunch at training camp. So all these restrictions on access have done zero to affect the performance of the team, and that's why I disagree with it.
I think viewers forget that. Maybe they don't even know. Like the first Bears game that I covered, Ron Turner is available in the middle of the locker room to ask questions about him in terms of what players did, what his own play calling, like instantaneously after the game, much like the head coaches. Just wasn't at the podium, but there he is in the middle of the locker room.
But fans aren't going to really notice the difference, I guess, in the coverage. So that's why these things always kind of ring hollow or just kind of fall flat. But the only thing I'll say is I always go back to this: is I first started covering the NFL in 1979, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the paper I was writing for in Columbia, Missouri, did not publish on Mondays. So I was basically writing a second day story. So I had all the time in the locker room. And at the end of every game, certainly every home game, I'm in the middle of the locker room talking with the head coach, Marv Levy, with the two Kansas City columnists, just chatting about football. Sometimes not even about football, but learning about the game, getting information and things that we just, that would never happen today. You get one shot at the head coach or anybody, and he's gone, and you never get chit chat time or anything. But that's my only point, that actually that's how different it is. 45 years ago, is just to be able to shoot it with the head coach at the end of after a game. It was just the access was just really unbelievably different back in that era.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, and it's kind of been across all sports. That's been that way. Now Jerry Jones still is available post game in Dallas. The owner, owner and GM, which would be a wild situation if every week you had to deal with that. But yeah, go ahead, Johns.
Which player, Mark, do you miss? Which players, I should say, do you miss covering the most? You had a lot of interactions, a lot of fun interactions with a lot of different players. I'll even include coaches. Like, which coaches do you miss covering?
Wow, that's hard. I'm really bad at that. Off the cuff, I'm trying to think of guys. Like, well, it's not always like the guys who maybe liked me or I liked the most. Like, I miss Brandon Marshall. I mean, he was interesting as heck to cover. And
he called you the numbers guy.
And fun, and fun to cover. Yeah, fun to cover. Yeah, called me on a lot of stuff. I miss Kyle Long. That's a guy I got along with, and we had 4 or 5 different incidents. Where I used to wait. It just shows you how funny kind of things happen. But I used to wait, like after a game, I would be like waiting. Kyle might have had a lot of sack or had a tough game, and I'm trying to show respect and waiting for him to kind of be ready to talk. And to him, I was like hovering. He says, "Well, come on, are you coming or not?" Like he was annoyed by that. I was trying to show respect, and he was annoyed by it. That's the interaction between NFL players and the media that is, I wouldn't say typical, but it's just interesting. But anyway, we would, we'd go back and forth every so often, including like when I asked him why he dive bombed a scrum at a Family Fest or whatever it was. I can't remember when it was. But anyway, but we got along, and Kyle, for a guy who, grew up in an NFL family, regular guy, one of the most regular guys you'll ever know. And I enjoyed dealing with him. He kind of got me too. That kind of helped. He understood what I was all about. So if there's probably anybody overall, I would go with Kyle. I just thought he was fun to cover, intelligent guy, and he's doing really well now in media. It's fun to watch him kind of grow personally and professionally. He's a father now and everything. It's kind of cool.
So your perspective on this is definitely something I want to hear, because we've all seen exciting young quarterback or exciting quarterback that they trade for, whatever, the next shiny new quarterback come in here and go on to fail, for all different kinds of reasons. My question to you, Potsy, with all the perspective you have on, all these guys that have been through the building, does this feel different to you with Caleb Williams?
Yeah, it does. I have no doubt about that. Who knows what's going to happen? There at Hallis Hall, anything can happen. But Caleb Williams is a different animal than, I guess, in the context historically, we're talking about Trubisky and Fields, and he is definitely a notch above them as a quarterback at handling the role of being the Chicago Bears quarterback. He has such a fine touch in everything he does. On multiple levels, he is a step above and has a much greater chance to succeed, not only because of his own personality and just what it is that makes him tick, but because, frankly, what we've all talked about, the supporting cast. He's coming in at the right time with a great defense, which Trubisky did at the beginning. But he's also coming in with wide receivers that Trubisky didn't necessarily have, or Fields. He has an offensive coordinator who's had 3 years experience calling plays that others have not had. So I think overall he's got the best chance. I've said it before. If this whole thing fails, and I mean, if this whole thing does not lead to a nice run of playoff contention for the Bears, it will be the biggest failure of the Bears in the post-Ditka era, because where there was hope, there is more expectation, I think, and I feel like things should happen, but I've been scarred by so many previous disappointments. I just can't say it's going to happen. All I'm saying is I go back to the theme of what I wrote at the beginning of the year, my season opening story: dare to dream. It's okay. It's okay to be optimistic, because you're not going to be kicking yourself wondering, what was I thinking if this thing goes to 8-9 or 7-10. You were thinking that the Bears had one of the best quarterback prospects ever, and a lot of reasons to be good. So to answer your question, to go back, sorry about the roundabout answer, but he's a different animal. The expectations should be different, and I think his floor is much higher. His floor and his ceiling are much higher. That's why I don't see the Bears doing much worse than 9-8, 8-9, even with injuries and things like that, because I think he's that good and he learns well, and there's a lot of things going in his favor.
You brought up a good point, because I agree with you. He just strikes me as ready for all this.
Yeah.
Beyond just like the football stuff, because there's more to being the Chicago Bears quarterback than just the football part. It's one of the hard realities of it. And I thought Jay Cutler probably realized that later in his Bears tenure. I think Trubisky struggled with it. I think Justin Fields struggled with it. What's kind of caught me maybe almost off guard is just how naturally comfortable Caleb Williams is just being the Chicago Bears quarterback. That's connecting with his teammates, but it's also publicly doing interviews in different settings, being the face of the team, communicating with fans, interacting with fans in different ways. I don't know if that struck you, but It's definitely stood out to me.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Now we won't know until he loses a game,
True.
or until things get, the bullets are real and everything gets tough. Because it's funny, of all the reputation, all the rumors and reputations, and all the things that happened last year, or, that gave him, that kind of had people wondering, is this really the guy to take number one pick? The one thing that was most real was he didn't talk after losing to Utah. I think it was Utah, and
I think it was the UCLA game.
was it UCLA? I can't remember. I thought
Yeah.
it was Utah. But anyway, there was a game where he lost and didn't talk. And, that's one thing where, I know fans don't care about our complaints about that, but that's real. I'm sorry. That's a part of the quote unquote professionalism, even at college level, that a player needs to do. And that was the one thing that struck me that kind of made all the other things, the possibility of them being real, that here, that even though it turns out that it doesn't appear they're not. But anyway, to get back on track, yeah, I agree with you 100%. I love this guy's touch. I think I'm good at noticing things like that. Little things like the things that Cutler didn't do and the things this guy does do. And he just has I would keep repeating myself on this, but he just has a really fine touch. And it's interesting. The thing I feel like I found out, and I know I'm late to the party on this, but it's in the 21st century, it's possible for guys to be into themselves and into their brand and have things on the side and all this stuff and still be a gamer, still be that guy who gets it and still is totally into football. In my day, if you had something on the side, or you were too into yourself or too selfish or whatever, or doing, you were not considered that guy who would be a winner or whatever. And I think kids just grow up differently today, and you can be that. And he's the prime example. And he's just got such a good, I always go back to a simple thing, like I always keep mentioning the bear claw. That to me, that is something that is it's the simplicity of it. It's not generational. It's not a 21st century thing. Bronco Nagurski could have come up with a bear claw, right? I mean, anybody from the 30s, or the 40s. It's an old school thing, but he came up with it, and it has stuck. And even his joke about what was about the punter, he said, glad to have you. We're not going to need you. That's that was just a funny thing and a natural thing. And I think it was pointed out today. I can't remember if it was a question or an answer about how natural he is. And that's the best thing I think is this is not forced. We've seen guys, even coaches, everybody's like the guy who comes in there and says, "Oh man, I hate the Packers." They don't know anything about hating the Packers, but they say it because they have to. This guy's the opposite of that. Caleb Williams, he has the right touch. He was talking about Aaron Rodgers and his how he emulates him, and even kind of apologized. Sorry about that, Bears fans. Don't mean to mention that, but it was just in a nice, natural way. He wasn't trying to make a big deal. He wasn't kind of catering to Bears fans and that. And so I guess my point is he's just very natural with that, and I think that shows that's a guy who can handle it. And again, we'll see what happens when things get tough. And I imagine they will be. I think this offense will probably struggle early, and we'll see how he handles the heat. But he shows every capability of doing it better than, Trubisky talking about the TVs being shut off. And I guess Fields handled it pretty well overall now that I think about it. But he even had his moments. I just think Caleb Williams is, just like I said, a different kind of cat. And I think that's, again, another reason to think that this is going to work out in some form or fashion better than what we've had these one-off playoff seasons. I think there's much better chance of doing better than that with this group.
Posse, let's turn the conversation to the head coach. What do you make of Matt Eberflus's makeover, newfound confidence at the podium, talking to the media? Even yesterday, if you dissected Jaquan Brisker's comments a little bit, he sort of hinted at Flus's growth, even as a coach behind the scenes, getting more comfortable with his relationships with the players over the last few years. I mean, are you buying all this that we're seemingly seeing before our eyes? The thing I keep pointing out, though, is there really has been no adversity yet. And I do want to see that test come through, like what it all looks like when the Bears inevitably, lose a tough game or blow a lead or go on a 2 to 3 game losing streak, whatever it is this season. That I feel like will be the real test.
Yeah, I agree. It's great, but until I see it make a difference in wins and losses, then we'll know just how much of a makeover it is, whether it's just cosmetic or more than that. Yeah, I think it's good. I think Matt Eberflus is a good coach for a good leader of a football team. I think players like him and like to play for him, and I think he's got. I don't. Of course, we never really see it, and you're not going to see it that much, I guess, even in Hard Knocks, because it's not really reality with the Bears. But I'm not sure exactly how he deals with the players, but he seems like he's got the nice touch as far as when to be tough with them and when to be their friend, which is, I think, the biggest trick for any coach. I think he's got it. I think he's good. I think it just comes down to whether he can handle success better than he handled failure. Because I think if the Bears are good, that's a test in itself. And whether he can, and frankly, whether he can make a difference in close games. You got to win close games to stay in the NFL. And I think that's going to be his biggest challenge. I'll be honest. I don't think he's on the hot seat like a lot of people do, as much as a lot of people do, because I just feel like that unless his defense is a part of the problem, I don't think they're going to be making any changes this year, and I just don't think they're going to be bad enough for that to happen. So I know that's kind of a different subject, but that just popped into my head because I think I'm a little bit off the beaten path on that as far as what people are thinking. I just don't feel like Flus is as much on the hot seat as many people think, because I think he's. I just feel like he's got a lot of things going for him.
What's that continuity argument, right? That used to. Well, we used for Jay Cutler, always had different offensive coordinators. Like you fire Flus, like who knows what's going to happen?
And you got a new offensive coordinator, right? And if it's if his defense is not part of the problem, then you've got a really top 5, top 10 defense theoretically. That now that's lost their main guy. So I think there's just factors in there that are going to make it really tough. And one of them is Caleb Williams. I think he's going to keep them afloat and keep them from being that disastrous bad that forces you to make a change. I could be. I'm not an expert at this, but I've been through it many times, and I just don't see it being the issue until you get a couple years into this. And the Bears, kind of like, I don't know, are people frustrated with McDermott and Buffalo? You kind of reach a fatigue, right, when you're successful, but you can't get over the hump. I don't know. I'm not sure about that, but you do read. I guess what I'm saying is I don't see Eberflus being an issue until not winning enough is the issue. I guess I would say that.
Right, like the expectations.
Yeah, you get to getting from point A to point B. Getting that next step, because I just feel like the Bears are. Like I said, I think their floor is actually pretty high. I don't see them having. Until recently, they never really had these bad 3-14 seasons, and so I think that this team is going to be more like that, where their floor might be 8 and 9, especially in this league.
With training camp officially ending, well, yesterday I guess was the final practice. We'll watch fully. How would you maybe characterize the overall vibe in that optimism, given your years of experience? Like, is there a certain year it feels like? Is there a certain camaraderie that it feels like? Given all your years of reading the touch of teams, like what does it strike you like?
Well, within the team, you mean, or just around town? I mean,
well, a little bit, how about both?
Okay. Well, I think this doesn't measure up to the entrance of Cutler. That was totally different. That was a totally different thing, because Cutler was a proven commodity who was in the Pro Bowl and throwing for 4,000 yards. And at the time, he was the quarterback the Bears never had, but he was kind of a finished product. So and that was a team ready to win. That was the Lovie year. That was 3 years removed from the Super Bowl. And so there was an expectation. That's the difference between hope and expectation. There was an expectation of being a contender there, and they only got 1 year out of that, as it turned out. So I think that would be number one. I don't think this measures up to that, because there's still an unknown. We still don't know. We're so used to things especially during the Cutler era, of so many things being wrong, not enough receivers, bad protection, bad relationship with the offensive coordinator. There are so many things, bad defense, 2012. So there's so many things that have gone wrong that when there's an unknown like this, you just don't know. I just feel like I don't think it's going to be as big an issue. So I think the vibe, it's maybe it's a good thing. It's not it hasn't been over the top in camp. Nobody's gone out of their way. I mean, except for the defense saying they could be top 5. That's been the biggest thing, right? I mean, has there been anything? No one's saying Super Bowl. You got a quarterback who's really, I think, really been good at kind of keeping that down, but still being optimistic. I think they've had the right touch, but because of that, I would say the vibe is not doesn't really compare to previous years, but I would argue that's a good thing. I think that's good that they're not leaning on that and that rah-rah stuff and, oh, we feel great. And this, I mean, there's always a natural optimism. I ask guys about it all the time. Is it any different than previous years? And never really get a good handle on that. But I guess to answer your question is, I think the vibe is good, but I think it's measured. That's what I would say. And I think overall that's a good flag, a good sign, a good indicator that this team will realize their potential much more than previous Bears teams have.
The one thing I will say though is it stood out to me that no one's really made it a focus to temper expectations for Caleb Williams.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like usually with Mitch or with Justin, I mean, whether it was before, and obviously they didn't go into week 1 as the starter in their situations. But even like once they were in there, it was always like, well, let's not get carried away here. And and I think it's even more telling when his teammates talk about him. You have Cole Kmet come out and be like, yeah, he is different. He is different from those other guys, but not in a way that it's like raising expectations to an unreachable level. But it's also nobody's going out of the way to be like, well, wait a minute, he's a rookie. And I think that actually does mean something. Like,
I agree.
Like he's won over that locker room, not only from a leadership standpoint, but also from an expectation standpoint, even amongst themselves, that they don't want to come out and be like, oh yeah, he's definitely the real deal. But it's kind of like, no, we feel like we can hit the ground running here with this rookie quarterback.
Yeah, I think I agree 100%, Adam. But one of the first impressions I got early in camp was just that they're treating this guy like he's a third-year pro. I heard one time in all the interviews I did, and I know a few people kind of hinted at it this week, but heard one time, I think it was Kerry Joseph, about the rookie thing. That's the only time I heard that tempering, like, oh, he's still a rookie, he's going to make rookie mistakes, blah, blah, blah. They've treated him like a third year, like I said, like a third-year guy from the beginning. The Bears at the very beginning said he's our guy. He's the number one guy. There's going to be no competition. That's something that might not end up being not a good thing, having a rookie, but the option of having some faux veteran, not as not Aaron Rodgers veteran as a mentor, that's faulty, so this is still the best option. But my point is they went right to that without hemming and hawing and playing that silly game. And so I think they've handled it really well. And I just think it's a good sign that, like I said, they're not treating him. They're not giving him those built-in excuses. He's a rookie. Now let's see what happens if he makes rookie mistakes. But I don't know. Not that he won't. He certainly will. But I think the question is how quickly he learns from them. And the previous two guys did not. They made the same mistakes at the end of year 2 that they were making in year 1. I just have a feeling this guy will correct his mistakes a lot more quickly.
Well, to even like further illustrate this point, when you thought that Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles might temper those expectations a little bit, this week Matt Eberflus talk about Caleb Williams being like the point guard of the offense. Like we've heard that before, right? Distribute the ball to your playmakers, let them make the plays, let them get the yards. But then they go, and Matt Eberflus did it first, and Ryan Poles kind of followed up on it. When it gets to those key downs, third down, red zone, and the moment's right, let the special come out. Like they both said something in that regard, and you're like, oh, that's different. There wasn't They didn't just end it at point guard. They're like, then he can go be a superstar
Yeah.
when the moment matters. Like that felt different to me.
That's the essence of this entire thing, Adam. Is that this year is that that was Pohl's whole objective. His MO was to not have a quarterback who had to do it all and put the team on his back, but yet still had the ability to make throws like, remember, like that little shot put to DeAndre Swift against Buffalo, was it?
Yep.
That's a throw that, sorry, Fields doesn't make. I mean, that's a little thing. That's not even one of those a wow throw. But I mean, they want him to do those things, and he's perfectly capable of it, and has the receivers who can make it pay off. So that's exactly it. They want him. They want the running game and whatever, however the offense operates, to not be totally Caleb-centric except for those moments when it needs to be, and then he makes the play. That's what this is all about. It's him being able to do that, and then eventually he'll be the guy. But I think it's important that the Poles always says it every time, in some form or fashion, not expecting this guy to carry the load, which frankly other quarterbacks have had that load with less talent, and that's why they failed.
Mark, when did you think during this new era covering Bears football that you could become the king of Bears Twitter?
Well, I don't know if I accept that. But Twitter is an interesting thing. I don't know. I guess I'm at the stage of my career where I don't give a darn. And I'm not swearing out of respect for the McCaskies.
There you go.
So and I also like to have fun. So the only thing I regret about it is that the fun I have on Twitter is that people who only see what I do on Twitter have a totally different viewpoint of what I do compared to those who read what I write and listen to.
A lot of people don't get it.
It's like this. Yeah, a lot of people don't get it, and I regret that.
But those are my favorite responses to you, the ones that don't get it, and then someone's got to tell them like, hey, it's a really good joke.
Those. Yeah, Josh Rock taught me how to somehow I can mute notifications or avoid. I don't do something where I don't see all the bad stuff. So, so that's been good. But yeah, I regret that. But on the other hand, I also think, well, if you don't read what I write, and that's on you. No offense to anybody, but yeah. I think I'm pretty optimistic or pretty measured on covering the Bears over the years, and I think very real, and it is what it is. And Twitter's a totally different persona. I always say Twitter to me is it's like even though it's not secretive or to me it's like putting on the mascot costume, and you can show your personality, like the Philly. I would say the Philly fanatic, guy, who can just be a totally different guy. I'm like that, only you can see me. That's the problem. It's me. But my point is, it's a totally different persona on Twitter. I just like to have fun with it, and just having fun. So that's the story behind my Twitter persona, I guess.
Well, here's even just a sampling in the last few days. You've been the 2024 White Sox versus the 1962 Mets. You've been following this all season.
Yeah, that's shtick.
Yeah, that I know.
Yes.
We got your colleague Daryl Van Schouwen with video of Grady Sizemore talking about them getting robbed the other night on the game-winning catch, and you tweeted, "The Sox just can't catch a break this season."
Yes.
Yeah, that was good.
Word for that.
Yeah.
Looking
forward to next week's gripping finale of HBO's Leave It to Beaver. That one made me laugh.
Yes. That is exactly what this is with George running the show.
And then this was another one on August 25th. Me waiting for an update on Greg Bragg's day or Mark Lazarus' vacation.
Yes. See, I only brag on people I like. That's the other thing. I don't touch people I don't like because I don't want to get into a real battle. So I just pick on people I like. So because I know they can take the joke. But yeah, the whole performative thing on Twitter, I'm sorry. The victory lap thing, which Braggs is
He's the king of.
I
Yeah.
always say if I took as many victory laps as Bragg's, I'd be able to run a marathon right now.
Which is
How did you
something he
decide-
definitely cannot do.
Yeah.
With his
Well,
torn
not now,
ACLs.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
did you
he's a
decide
good guy
to,
and good Bears fan, so I like him.
Sorry. How did you decide to get Lazarus Vacation in there instead of all his movie reviews?
Well, anything. Mark is one of my good friends too. By the way, we had we long for the days of covering the Hawks in the glory days. So
Whoa, I was part of that before Mark.
yes. Well, we didn't know how much glory days those were back
True.
when we were covering that, and we didn't realize that, but now we do. And so I love Mark. He tweets about everything. From mascots to political things, and puts it all out there. And just having fun. He just likes, he just can't stop. He just can't stop himself.
But my question though is, which Carmel football game are you going to come out to though this season, where you analyze good or bad every special teams play from start to finish?
Yes, that was a lot of fun. I can't remember what game that was. Was that the Paul Prep or whatever? Where you guys?
It was either DePaul or Vider.
Dominant.
I got lucky because I should say we got lucky because we played really well on special teams that night. And because I know you so well, if we had played horrible, you would have pointed out all the bad stuff too.
Well, I might have, but I just remember my favorite tweet that night was that Adam Hoge might actually be the smartest guy in the room after one of those punt returns. It was such a good night. But no, I've already got a peg Lake Forest. I think it's the 6th. I will be out there. I'm already planning on it and to check it out because I like to go to a nice when it's a night when the weather's nicer. But I also saw that you guys are playing Loyola later in the year, and that will be quite the showdown. You play them every year, or did you play them last year?
No, we have not. We haven't played them since I started coaching there. So.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I know that will be a big game, so I've got that. I think that's the bye week for the Bears, so got that peg too. But yeah, looking for. I love high school football. I love supporting my friends, and so that's a good. I love going out to see that. There's a lot of fun. High school football is really good. It's great. Big. And tonight is the night, Friday night.
Yep.
When we're taping this, as a opening night, right? So.
We're excited. We love having you out there, Potsy. So
yeah, it's great. Yeah,
appreciate the support.
Michael Bryan, Mark's colleague, my former colleague, he has you ranked this year, right? 21st, was it? Are you higher than that in the Sometimes rankings?
I'm a football coach, Johns. I don't pay attention to the outside noise.
This,
I don't pay attention to the outside noise. No. Yeah. Honestly, someone pointed it out to me yesterday. I hadn't seen that yet, and I love Michael O'Brien. Does a phenomenal job. He actually came out to one of our practices a couple weeks ago, so I got to talk to him for a while. But to be honest, I had not seen those rankings. I think Ike pointed them out to me yesterday, though.
Yeah, Mike.
Is it 21st?
Mike's the best. I'm trying to pull it up right now, but I
will say this about Adam, and one of the reasons, seriously, I really respect what he does is because I like a guy who can, who talks a good game, but also is willing to get in the ring. And I think that's great that Adam coaches. So, he talks all about the game and he talks very confidently about it. And a lot of times those guys are, come across as, smartest guy in the room, but something, Adam gets in the ring and he's in there coaching. And I think that's great because you learn about it and I think that shows that you know what you're doing and know what you're talking about. So kudos to you, Adam, for doing that. I really respect that.
Which Adam?
I was going to say, and what about me?
Yeah, that is you. Who are you coaching, Adam?
Immaculate Conception Grade School.
Oh, really? Okay, I'm going to check that out too.
Come on out. Yes.
Quarterback coach.
Yeah.
So take that, Cale Williams. This guy's going to be analyzing everything you do.
A little different on the reads from 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds to first-round picks from USC.
Potsy, thanks for coming on, man. This was great. Awesome way to sort of catch up and get going here before Labor Day weekend. We finally will be in week 1 next week.
I can't wait. I always get caught, being too optimistic. But like I said, there's very good reason to be. And I always say I just turned 65 and I can't afford to retire. But even if I could, I would stick around to see how this thing plays out, because I really feel like this is, I've been covering the Bears for a long time. they have not had more than back-to-back playoff years since Ditka left. And it would be nice to have see a nice run of playoff contention in Chicago. And I feel like, I'll go out on a limb and take a chance of looking like an idiot, but I think this is by far the best chance to do that. And I know those are modest expectations. The Bills do that, the Packers do that, everybody does that. But I think this is a really good chance to have that kind of run. And so I have to say, as we're on the eve of this season, let's talk in 18 weeks and see what happens. Replay this, but I feel like they're at least going to take a big step towards that this year.
Well, thank you, Mark.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate
Talk
it.
soon.
See you, Potsy.
Well, Johnsy, in a little bit of a scheduling snafu, it turns out that Potsy is also on the CHGO Bears podcast today. Which
he would call himself overexposed after today.
Yeah. And
I'm guessing that conversation with Braggs is going to be a bit different than our conversation.
Yeah, Mark Carman, Greg Braggs hosting that show today. Good luck to Mark Carman getting a word in with Braggs and Potsy going back and forth. That should be a lot of fun. So you get, honestly, you listen to that one too, because yes, like Johnsy just said, I'm sure the conversation will be a little different. Right before we leave you guys going to Labor Day weekend, we wanted to quickly, and we'll do this quickly, but touch on fantasy football, which we don't do a lot here on the show, but everybody's having their fantasy drafts this weekend. And I don't know about you, Johns, but I do get questions like, what do you think about DJ Moore? What do you think about, these wide receivers and DeAndre Swift? How do you feel about the prospects of the Bears offensively as viable fantasy football players this season?
Oh, I feel good. I felt good about DJ Moore last year. I thought for sure. I mean, there was like an over-under out there on his catches. What was it, like 80 or something like that? He was going over like crazy over that. Just that was my prediction right away or early on in the season. If I had to rank them in terms of like fantasy production, like here's my top 5. I would go DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift, especially if it's PPR, and like I would move him amongst maybe the top 5 or 6 running backs in PPR leagues. I think he's going to have a lot of receptions.
Wow.
Yes. And then I'm going to go Keenan Allen. And then 4 or 5 is kind of mixed. If we're talking about the pass catchers, somewhere with Cole Kmet and Rome Odunze in there.
Yeah, I really like DeAndre Swift. I think he's going to be used a lot. I mean, obviously the question there is health. If you look at ESPN's right now, running back tiers, they have DeAndre Swift all the way down in the 7th tier of running backs. They're telling you not to draft him till the 7th or 8th round.
That would be a steal to me.
Yeah, he might be available that late in your league because I feel like that's going to be the consensus. So what I would say is if you're able to grab him in the 6th, I don't feel like that's a reach.
Move him up around.
Yeah, I think you can move him up around. I think, let's see, DJ Moore, they have in the 4th tier wide receivers to draft in either the 3rd or 4th round. I think you could bump him up a little bit too. I wouldn't go crazy. But I do think that's a relatively safe player to have on your fantasy team. I think Keenan Allen's way riskier, and Rome Odunze just being a rookie. I think Rome's going to be a little volatile in that he's going to have some really big weeks and then other weeks where he, doesn't pile up the fantasy points. Just, that's very typical for a rookie. But if you're able to grab him late and you have a keeper league where you're allowed to keep a couple players, you're able to get him late. Like that could be a guy that's going to give you a lot of value a year from now as a keeper. So keep that in mind as well.
In terms of defenses,
let's talk about Caleb real quick.
Okay, fine.
Before we switch over.
Well, are these kids drafting or adults drafting? Because if it's a kid's draft, like my son's draft, Caleb Williams went in the 2nd round.
Yeah.
So,
well, this is a real thing, though.
But he is a QB 114.
Is your league full of Bears fans or is it full of Packer fans like mine? Because I'm not going to get a lot of value trying to steal Jordan Love ahead of all these other guys, right? So I'm not even going to bother with that. However, might still be able to get Caleb later on. If you're in I'm serious. If your league is full of Bears fans, my recommendation is don't go crazy trying to get Caleb Williams. Unless you're maybe a 2 quarterback league would be different. If you have that super flex spot. But I think he's probably going to get overdrafted in your Bears heavy league, to be honest with you. And I think you're better off going a different direction. But if you're in a, more spread out league where the fandoms are a little bit different, I think you might be able to get some value because I do think Caleb's going to play in fantasy football this year. I honestly like him more than Jaden Daniels. As much as Jaden Daniels is getting hyped up as a runner, I worry about Jaden Daniels staying healthy. Whereas I think Caleb, when you've watched him the way he plays so far, there's a higher likelihood that he's going to get through the season.
Now, in terms of the Bears defense, I think the same thing applies. If you're in a Bears fan heavy league, I think the Bears defense is going to be a bit early. They're going to be good. Turnovers, I should say, takeaways. I don't know what the sack numbers are going to be, but they're not going to allow a lot of points. But if you want some takeaways, you want a couple pick sixes, I don't think they're going to be 2018 good, but they'll be up there in the statistical categories you need to get points.
Yeah. All right. Well, there are little fantasy nuggets going into the weekend. Everybody enjoy the football that's going to be on your screen this weekend. I know I will. Get your mind off the Bears a little bit this weekend. Watch some other games. Spend some time with the family. Whatever you're going to do. Enjoy the last few days of summer. We'll be back on Wednesday. Our schedule, our cadence of shows this year is going to be a little bit different. And so our midweek episode will be on Wednesdays now. And so that's when we'll be back, kind of in the heart of week 1 by then. Start breaking things down for the Bears' first game. Really looking forward to it. In the meantime, make sure you're reading us, following us on Twitter and all that. Check out HogeJahns.com. Enjoy Labor Day weekend. Talk to you next week.
See ya.